Hello, welcome to ID Talks. Today we have a special guest from the United States of America, Ambassador Richard Hoagland, who is Security and Politics Program Chair in the Washington-based Caspian Policy Center and former U.S. co-chair of the OEC Minsk Group. Mr. Hoagland, hello and welcome to our program.
Well, it's my pleasure to be with you as always. Thank you for asking.
Thank you so much. In our edition today, we'll talk about the geopolitical issues around the Caspian Sea. So how do you see the Caspian Sea's role in shaping regional cooperation, particularly regarding the energy sources?
This is still a work in progress, it seems. You and your viewers all know that from the beginning of independence after the fall of the Soviet Union, each individual new state, new country focused on its own issues and building up itself to become a real country. It's only in recent years that they've begun to look out and work with each other. We saw that start in Central Asia maybe 3, 4 years ago when they began to think about the idea of forming a C5, meaning the five countries, without an outside interlocutor to tell them what to do and how to think and what to do next. So this kind of process is moving along. You might remember that the C5 has begun to invite President Aliyev from across the Caspian to some of its meetings, and that is very important also. So the process of the region working together is a work in process. It's starting to grow. It's not there yet. There are some countries that are more interested in this than others, but I firmly believe, from having watched this region since its independence, that this is the wave of the future. This is the way things will go.
Mr. Ambassador, according to some experts, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, and Turkmenistan are well placed to provide green energy that could be transmitted via the Caspian EU energy corridor. What's your opinion on this matter?
Well, they are well placed, that's correct, to do green energy. This is rather a new concept for the energy world. When it first developed, there were commentators who were saying, oh, within 2 or 3 years, we will no longer need natural gas and oil. It'll all be green energy. But the reality is that for at least another generation, at least, there will be a real need and a growing need for more natural gas and oil. Now, yes, Kazakhstan and Turkmenistan and Azerbaijan are well placed geographically, but there, for example, are no pipelines across the Caspian from Kazakhstan or Turkmenistan into Azerbaijan to get those resources into Europe. So there needs to be probably a policy statement from each of those individual countries that this is the wave of the future, and here is how we are beginning to tackle this problem. Building wind farms, no matter what it takes. Kazakhstan, for example, could work on water energy from the mountains, things like that. But as the climate changes, there's going to have to be a lot of work done quite quickly, I'm afraid.
Mr. Hoagland, let me provide some statistical issues. The Astana Times reported on December 28, in 2023, that the volume of cargo transportation via the Middle Corridor in the January-September period that year reached 2 million tons, up from 1.5 million tons during the same period in 2022. The Middle Corridor, just to remind, is a network of roads, railways, and ships that connect Europe to Asia through the Caucasus and Central Asia and across the Caspian and Black Seas. How is the progress on the project implementation going? What achievement can be highlighted here?
I think what's happening with the Middle Corridor, and I'm very glad that you raised this, it's probably one of the key issues for the entire region. The one of the growing awarenesses is that there is still a lot of infrastructure that needs to be built, hard infrastructure, but there's also the soft infrastructure, which means the countries working together for their customs fees, for their transit fees, those kinds of things. That kind of work still needs to be done. However, I think there's some good news. I was just recently last week at the European Union headquarters in Brussels. And during that time, we heard a number of the officials who work on the Caspian region talk about the new 10 billion euro commitment for the middle corridor, essentially. And we asked, how is this going to be done? And they said it's mainly through the international financial institutions that work in the region already. We asked, is there anything in place that would prevent the money from being badly misused? And at least one official said money is always going to be misused. Nevertheless, the fact that there are international financial organizations involved in this is quite promising. It means that Europe has finally said, absolutely, this middle corridor is the wave of the future. I think what was happening was that they were waiting to see what would happen with the Russian war in Ukraine, but that's continuing. It's starting. It's very close to moving into its third year now, for God's sake. So it's time to really see what is the wave of the future, and the middle corridor is a big part of that wave, I believe.
So, following your answer and coming back to the Caspian Sea region, what challenges and opportunities do you foresee in enhancing cooperation and stability in the Caspian Sea region?
Well, Caspian cooperation is still a work in progress. I think the countries that are taking the lead in that, at least on the Central Asian side, are Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Historically, Turkmenistan has been one of the countries that is very, very cautious about making decisions like cooperation throughout the region. If you cross the Caspian, then there is a very promising move underway right now, and that is the continuing negotiations between Baku and Yerevan for a framework agreement for long-term peace. If that can be achieved, that opens up an entirely new world of cooperation from the other side of the Caspian through the South Caucasus and into Europe. But what I see is very positive is that whenever over the last 10, 20 years, whenever there have been problems between countries, they work it out. This has not been, the Caspian region has not been one of the conflict regions of the world. And that is very hopeful for the future.
Mr. Hoagland, once you say that United States should cluster the Caucasus with Central Asia, how do you perceive this process?
I think that the reality is that partially because this is a relatively peaceful area, the United States doesn't have to put full attention on it like it is right now, for example, with Ukraine, like it has been very recently with um, uh, Gaza in Israel. I know from having been a U.S. diplomat that the crisis of the day is always what takes the most attention. And if there aren't crises, then all the diplomats and the leaders, the diplomats say, "Ooh, Slava Bogu, we don't have to pay as much attention today to these countries." Nevertheless, I can tell you that the United States is paying attention to the concept of the middle corridor. They are looking at ways to build stronger relations. So I have I won't say that the United States is going to radically change its policy in the region, but I think it'll become firmer. It will grow. It will grow in a positive way. And we should be thankful for that, I think.
Thank you, Mr. Hoagland, for joining ID Talks today. Thanks.
It's my great pleasure to talk to you and to your colleagues and those who are watching. Thank you. All the best.